everybody. Again, some of you already joined our previous webinars. So we would like to introduce ourselves. My name is Yulia Petrachuk. I'm the artistic director of the Lyrica Classic Entertainment. And this is my colleague, Carlo Mahfouz.
I'm Director of Innovation and Strategy here at Lyrica, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, and before we start, make sure that you choose the right language to listen to. The options Russian or English is listed in your screen's down menu. If you click on the globe icon, Maestro, you don't change anything. You can also use Q&A chat to ask questions during this session that our guest will answer at the end of the interview. And you can write in English and Russian. We will translate it. So our webinar today with Gregory Buchalter is a part of the international virtual project Spread New Music to the World. This is a collaborative artistic program between Russia and the United States with support of the US Embassy in Moscow. And it features the new American oratorio, Requiem for the Fallen, by American-Belgian composer Emmanuel Dubois. You can find more information on our website. Today, we are meeting with renowned American opera and symphony conductor, Gregory Buchalter. Hello, maestro.
Hello. Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you tonight or today morning with us. So we would like to play a little bit from your performance. Is it playing?
Yes, we're going to share in a second. Yes.
Just 1 second. Mm-hmm. That was just the end of the from your performance in Varna International. Così fan tutte, yes. So I would like to introduce you a little bit, and tell about you. So to our guests, Gregory Buchalter is a renowned American opera and symphony conductor. He is the artistic director and conductor of opera Fairbanks, do I pronounce right?
Fairbanks.
In Alaska, Opera Camerata of Washington, and former conductor of Opera Las Vegas. In Fairbanks, Maestro has conducted many operas and concerts featuring famous American mezzo-soprano Vivica Genoux. He has brought in many internationally renowned singers during his leadership with these companies, including Paul Pliska, Sandra Radanovsky, Francisco Casanova, and Alessandra Mark. He has conducted at such renowned festivals as the Savolina Opera Festival, Vienna Volksoper, the Spoleto Festival, New Opera World Festival in Moscow, the Mediterranean Opera Festival in Sicily, and the Varna International Festival, where he is the principal conductor. He was the first American to conduct the Kazakhstan State Opera. And Maestro has been a chorus master of Santa Fe Opera. He was also chorus master in the Bregenz Festival in Austria, Theater des Westens in Berlin, and the Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra. Mr. Buchalter was on the stage of Metropolitan for 30 years as a cover conductor, where the position of Maestro di Banda was created specifically for him. And he has worked extensively with the Metropolitan Opera Chorus. He's on demand worldwide as both an operatic and symphony conductor. Maestro, would you like to add anything?
Certainly not. I think you were very generous with all your comments of my career.
Okay, very good. So our webinars generally theme is how to achieve success and in the modern world of classical music industry. What is different, yeah, from the time when you started your career and now? What was more easier, yeah, in that times, and more difficult now, or easier, or more achievable? Yeah.
Well, first of all, if you asked me this question a year ago, my answer would be very different. So I think we can actually modify the question slightly and say what has changed today. And of course, it's no secret to anybody that COVID has been the most devastating blow to our industry that our industry has ever faced. You know, I could just say, because I have worked at the Metropolitan Opera for 30 years, that in my 30 years, the only time we canceled one performance was once because there was the weather. We had so much snow that people could not make it to the theater.
Yes.
And another time, very tragically, one of the singers died on stage. So of course we had to bring the curtain down and stop the performance. These already are extreme examples. And now the fact that the Metropolitan Opera is not operating for over a year is just unprecedented and such a tragedy. But it's not just the Metropolitan Opera, of course, it's our theaters all over the world. So it has really forced us, artists, to find another way to communicate, to be artists, to share our music with the world. We never would have thought that we would be doing so much online. And I must say that pre-COVID, before COVID, we were already going towards media. Media was becoming very strong. So now I can go back to your question that at the beginning of my career, technology was not very advanced. We didn't even have cell phones yet. So productions, as technology has developed, have become much more advanced, much more intricate. We've been using video much more. So for example, video projections on stage you can create an incredible effect that is, you know, not something that could have happened 30 years ago. And I think opera, like all art forms and music, keeps up with the times of technology. So already at the Met before COVID, we were on the radio every night, because live on the radio with Sirius Radio, we have a partnership with them. And then our HD features, which you see in Russia, which we see all over the world, have become extremely popular. And, you know, previously, the singers only had to worry about Saturday afternoon broadcasts being live. Now every night is live, and now we're on video. So another thing that has really changed from when I was starting is that video is so important that we are seen, not just heard, in our art form as musicians. And it's important that we look good, whatever that means, that productions are being devised now based on people's looks, physical looks, not just so much on how great they sound.
So you do more sport?
Yeah, and also close-ups. I mean, before the Metropolitan Opera is 4,000 seats. Before, if you're singing on stage, nobody can really see you up close. But now facial expressions are so powerful, because of the video camera being right in front of your nose, literally, you can just, the slightest grimace already is very powerful. It's kind of like the silent movies, of the 30s with no sound. And everybody, you watch them and is so exaggerated, the facial expressions. We're almost back to that because we have such close-ups with the face. So in terms of when I started, definitely technology has advanced so much. And I think one of the main things is that we are seen so much more than just heard.
Yeah. So basically your advice is to do more sport and go to beauty salon.
That's for the directors to say what they are looking for, a certain look, because, like in Broadway in theater, sometimes looks are more important than the sound of the voice. I think opera is now also integrating theater and opera together more. For example, in the 60s and the 70s, we had the great singers like Birgit Nilsson, Joan Sutherland, Renata Tebaldi, Leontine Price. They could just, even Luciano Pavarotti, who I worked with many times at the Met, they could stand there and sing beautifully and nobody cared if they moved. Today, it's not enough. Today, there has to be more action, more theatrical elements of the stage. And in fact, when the opera that I conducted, Yevgeny Onegin, at the Prokofsky Theater with New Opera World a few years ago in Moscow, The director had a concept of a very modern concept. It's a small theater, so we were able to be more theatrical. And it was very different than a traditional production you would see at the Bolshoi, for example. So I think a lot of the smaller theaters are also able to be much more theatrical, and the large ones as well. But yes, I mean, productions are being built around more physical attributes that we are doing more on stage. Anna Netrebko is a great example because she's very physical. I've seen her at the Metropolitan Opera do somersaults on stage. I saw her sing, when I did Puritani with her, she sang the Mad Scene with her head over the orchestra pit. I really thought she would fall in, but she is so active. And this is an example of somebody, and when she does a concert, for example, at her Carnegie Hall concert she did last year, she uses the whole stage, not just one spot in front of the piano and singing. So yes, opera has become much more physical in all ways.
Well, and of course, Anna Netrebko is a great example of to be like a complex artist.
Yes,
and
you can do everything.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So I know, you already mentioned that you conducted in Russia, and worked with Russian musicians. Was it different from working with European musicians or like from in the United States? Was any like cultural barriers or music basically has one?
Absolutely.
Language?
I mean, when I worked at New Opera World with the Onegin, was not the first time. I conducted Salome at the Savalina Festival. And we used the orchestra from the Novoya Opera and Moscow. So I was flown in to rehearse with them. Now, Salome, as everybody knows, is one of the most difficult operas for the musicians. It's so difficult to play. Each instrumentalist is the virtuoso on his own or her own instrument. And this orchestra had never played Strauss or even Wagner before. So it was a challenge for me as the conductor to teach it to them. But Russian musicians have the most incredible training. I know this because I had two Russian teachers, piano teachers, when I was a student, and something about the rigorous atmosphere of working, very strict, and also the incredible demand for technical goods is prevalent in Russian training, and so each one of these instrumentalists was proficient on his or her instrument for the Salome, and they did so well. So, I mean, I was so proud of them. But I think your question does not just apply to Russians versus American. And by the way, because the Metropolitan Opera is an international house, we work with Russian singers. Like I mentioned Anya, but we work with Russian singers all the time. When we do Russian operas, almost all Russian casts. And even for the Italian operas, so it's not new for me to work with Russian musicians when I come to Russia. But because we're an international house, we have all different nationalities and styles. And the most amazing thing about my career is that I get to travel and work with different orchestras all the time with different cultures. And each one brings me something different to the table. When I'm in Italy, the Italians have a different sense of style and music making than the Germans, for example. So when I'm, for example, La Bohème, okay, famous opera Puccini. I've conducted it many times, many different places. I, as the conductor, know how La Bohème should go and how I want it to go. But I have to be so flexible because I don't know until I go to a new country with a new situation how this orchestra will respond to me. So if I feel like I can only do it this way, I will not be a successful conductor. I have to be very flexible with my approach. For example, in New World Opera, the director Anna Sullivan, she asked me to come and to conduct the Onegin. And I said to her, the first thing I said to her is, why are you asking an American to come conduct your music? And she said, when you have so many good Russian conductors at home, and she said, and I really respected this so much. She said, because Russians have a very set way of doing Russian music, and we're an international theater, and we want to bring in a different approach. And I really respected that. I thought that's a wonderful thing, but this is also a challenge for me because I know the Russian approach to Onegin because I assisted Valery Gergiev at the Met. So of course, nobody can be more Russian than he in terms of his style. However, I also realized from what she said is that they do not necessarily just want a rigorous way of the Russian style. So I had to really make a choice between, do I do it the way, the tradition of Russia, or do I introduce something of my own into it? And also I conducted Die Fledermaus in Vienna, and it was the same sort of situation. Strauss is their music. And how could I be so arrogant to come into them and as an American conductor and say, this is how Fledermaus is? No, I need to know how they play it. I need to know the style, the rubatos that they do. They play waltzes very different, by the way, in Vienna than we do, for example.
Oh, okay.
And I have to use that information and then bring a little bit of my own soul into it. Because we are all artists. Nobody does anything the same way. Russians do not do the same piece the same way. Otherwise, we are robots. And thank God, we all have different approaches and interpretations and ideas. And we all have different life experience that we bring through our music and art. There's so many factors that makes us unique. And again, this is why maybe today with technology, it's a little bit difficult for us because when we're performing online, everything is being streamed. That's another difference from when I started now. And this was before COVID. And I think after COVID, when we go back to normal performances, everything will be streamed and on YouTube. I think YouTube will blow up one day because there will be so much on it because everything now becomes part of the internet and everything is being seen by everybody, which is great. It's a great way for a young artist, for example, to get known, but it's also, I don't know, it takes a little bit away of the specialness of being in front of people. I'm doing an internet playing performance tomorrow with Orchestra Miami. We're playing Beethoven Eroica Symphony, 4 hands with my colleague. And I asked for a little bit of an audience, some neighbors to come so that we feel the feeling of people in front of us, because just to play on the internet, we feel very empty. It's, yes. We as artists, we take the audience's reaction. Sometimes it's a bad audience and we don't feel good and it's hard for us to perform. Sometimes it's an exciting audience. You can just feel them being with you, breathing with you. Of course, the applause. It's hard not to hear applause at the end of a performance. It really feels strange.
Yeah.
So this is something we have to get used to because I think this will remain after COVID. COVID really has changed, revolutionized our industry a lot.
Plus, maybe we will.
Maybe for the better at the end. We will see.
Also, maybe who is starting only their careers, and they didn't use to live performances. They actually will, it will be a new era of online concerts, and for them, they will find inspirations also in virtual settings. Just seeing people, on the screen, but who, like me as well. Of course, we miss live audience, and it's very important. So the question which we asking all our guests, so what do you think is the most important for a successful artist today, and especially for a performer?
For a performer, I just said that we are not robots, we are humans, and we all have a different soul. We think differently. We feel music differently. We have different levels of technique. I think you have to be true to yourself and not try. I mean, so many singers, for example, come to me and say, oh, so-and-so, did this, and I really emulate that. And I said, that's great. Be inspired, like by Anya Netrebko, but don't try to be like Anya Netrebko. Be yourself, because I think we each have to bring our own identity into what we do. That's what makes us real and organic. If we try to be something else because we feel, this person is better, we're all different. I hate to use the word somebody is better or worse than I am. We're all different. So you had a very, other conductors before me, my colleague, Enrique, who I know very well and admire very much. We are all different. He may do certain repertoire a certain way, and I do certain repertoire another way. We specialize in different things. And then I find that you know, I enjoy watching other people's performance, other conductors. You know, again, Bohème, I'll say, I know how Bohème goes, but I also know that there are so many possible ways. I love to learn new possibilities. I love to see somebody else's Bohème, and either I say, no, that doesn't work for me, that's not right, but it works for that person. So, and the other thing is that when I go to, and this is important about your question about being flexible is the most important thing, that when I go to, okay, say I am going to conduct another production of Bohème, I'm scheduled for something in March, then I go to, I know again how I want Bohème to be, but until I meet the singers at the first musical rehearsal and hear that the Mimi has a bigger voice than I'm used to and maybe needs more time to breathe, so that maybe I have to take slower tempos than I normally would because she's human. She needs a little bit more space. The thing is, I have to, even though I know Bohème so well, I have to be flexible enough to realize that I'm working with other people, singers, that will have different issues than from the last cast that I did. And again, this is what makes our business so exciting, that I'm always in for a surprise, meeting new people and new challenges, because each one is a challenge. Each time you have a new concept. So for young people, I would say starting out, really be flexible. Realize that there's not only one way to do something. If you feel you're working with a conductor, for example, and the conductor is taking something a little too fast for you, try it. Before you say to the conductor, you know, I need this slower, which is legitimate, but first try it, because so many times people have come to me and said, can we try this a little differently? And if I felt very strong about it, if it's tempo or dynamic or something, I say, absolutely, but let's try it this way first. And almost always the person comes back and says, I'm so glad you insisted to try it because it really was better for me. So be flexible, be respectful, I think is so important to your colleagues, to the people you work with. Be professional. You know, maybe you feel you know something better as a young person. When we're young, we think we know everything. I certainly felt I knew everything when I was young. And now I know that I'm older and I still don't know everything. So I think to be open-minded and you know, you can learn so much by really, you know, understanding that there are so many different ways to do something. Advice for young people, I think it's good now to be savvy in the business world of music, which I was not. For me, everything was just the artistry. And now, as we've been talking about, the things are more commercial. Back when I was starting, people, especially young singers, looked for patrons, somebody who would help support their arts, pay for their lessons, pay for sometimes their apartments. I knew many singers who had this, who looked for it. Today, there are much more ways to reach out and get funding to help one's career. Crowdfunding platforms, you know, are on the internet. GoFundMe.com is very successful, that people, companies are doing. So this is something, again, it goes back to your first question, what is different from when I was starting out? But these are things that I think is good for people to learn about, the possibilities out there. The cultural temperament is very different now. It's more business savvy. And I think we all have to work for ourselves in terms of getting started. So I think that be true to yourself, be flexible, you know, learn a little bit about the business side of the arts, because that's very important.
That's true. So we have one question here from Evgeny Makarov. Hello, Maestro. The question is, in the United States, when staging a foreign opera on the original language. Oh, so sorry. Didn't understand immediately. Yeah. So in the States, when we're staging operas, are they running on the original language or in translation to the English?
Very good question. Very good question, Yevgeny. It depends. You know, before the titles that appear, I don't know how it is well, we had it, of course, in the Prokofsky Theater. Before we had the titles on the screen, or in the Met, it's on the back of the seat in front of us, the translation to the language of the people. Before that, a lot of comedy operas, especially Mozart, Donizetti, were performed in English. in the States so that people could understand it. Now that we have the titles to read the translation, much more is being in the original language. So in a big theater, international theater like Metropolitan, we do almost everything in original language. All the Russian operas we do in Russian. The Czech operas we do in Czech. Something like Hansel and Gretel we do in English, but that's because it's maybe more for children and that. But almost the big theaters almost always in original languages. The smaller theaters, sometimes we will do in English so that it's more accessible to people. There are certain opera companies that only will perform in English. I think some in England, there are some companies, and we have some smaller ones also. Well, we have some in this US, but I think in general today, original language, I do not like translations because it's it takes away a lot of the reason the composer wrote a certain melodic line had to do with the text. And I think when we try to change that, it becomes a little awkward sometimes to sing.
It actually was the second of his questions. What is your opinion about that?
But if we have to do that, because we also do Fledermaus in English, and I've done, as I said, I've conducted it in German, I've done it in both languages everywhere. But I think then we have to find something new in it. If it, the thing about being flexible that I keep saying is if you have to sing in a translation and it doesn't feel good, you have to find something in it that works for you, as hard as it is. That's part of being an artist and being professional, is that you try to find something in it that's good, that works for you.
Yeah. So what is your the favorite theater where you performed, or venue, or country?
Oh, well, now you make it difficult. It's cliche, but everywhere I work is my favorite at the time, because I can't say that I've worked somewhere where I've not been unhappy. I've been happy because maybe I wish this theater had more of this or more of that, but like I said, then it has something else that's different. Exactly. And I've been spoiled by being at the Metropolitan at such a young age, because at the Met we have everything. There's somebody to do everything for you. There's, a union that will put the music on your music stand, or put the lights on your stand, if you're backstage or something. In smaller companies, we have to do everything. The conductor is responsible for the music and for the cuts in the music. In the Metropolitan, we have a library that does all the cuts for you. Each one is a different experience, each situation. I mean, the acoustics of the Metropolitan are fantastic. I've worked in smaller theaters where they have different kind of acoustics. I think you can ask me specific theaters and how I feel about there, but I can't say I have a favorite. And there's always going to be a new theater that I'm trying for the first time, and I always want to be open-minded. Maybe, hey, this will be even the best experience. Yeah. But in terms of theaters, it's hard to say. But you said which country? Again, each country brings me something new. The honor to conduct Yevgeny Onegin in Moscow, and to conduct Fledermaus in Vienna, and to do American operas in my country. I premiered several American operas, like at the Metropolitan, The Ghost of Versailles by Corigliano, and The Great Gatsby, Harbison, where I had a big part on stage conducting. I've been so honored by doing so many great things in so many different countries. It's hard to pick a favorite. But I mean, again, to do Russian music in Russia, this is my favorite way to do it, of course. To have Russian musicians who understand the music and the style so well. But maybe if I can elaborate on that, for me, we are human beings, no matter where we come from. We're all musicians, no matter where we come from. And I don't know that I feel Gershwin or Leonard Bernstein better because I'm American than somebody else from another country. At the same time, I don't know that I don't feel Traviata or Rigoletto better than an Italian conductor. I feel that I have enough knowledge about Italian music, about Italian history. When I have to learn a piece in a foreign country for the first time, I make sure that I understand the history of the country at that time, the history of the composer. What Verdi's different styles from his beginning to middle to late are very different. And it's so helpful to know what he went through. For example, his second opera, Un giorno di Regno, was his first comedy. Well, it's his second opera. It was a comedy, and it was a big fiasco. He was having a very, very bad time. A child of his died. He had a bad marriage, and he was in a terrible time. And he never could write another comedy again after that, until he was 82, and he wrote Falstaff at the very end of his career. And that's a comic masterpiece. But the thing is, it's why did he wait his whole life to write another comedy? It's so important to know the life, his suffering that he went through, and the bad experience he had with his first comedy. So it's my duty as a conductor to be able to know the history of the composer and the work being studied. Mm-hmm. So I feel that I can be an excellent representative of somebody in Italian music or Russian music or German music if I have the knowledge and the history, mm-hmm. if I've worked with performers from those countries. So we are all musicians. I really don't feel that one, because they're from one country, really they are going to necessarily be better at that music.
Mm-hmm. Of course. And when you conduct, with international musicians, do you use English or Italian? This is a question, for also young artists to learn languages. How important it is?
Okay, so this is a great question. And of course, yes, because I work in so many different countries. Mm-hmm. I speak Italian and German fluently and a good amount of French. So when I'm conducting in Italy or Germany, I'm very comfortable working with the orchestra, talking to them. Because I've conducted, especially in a lot of Slavic countries, we talked about Russia, and I'm in Bulgaria every summer, and I've conducted in Serbia a lot. I obviously cannot speak these languages fluently, but the first thing is that I learn how to count, because you have to tell the orchestra where to start in the rehearsal process. And very lucky for me, the counting in Russian and Serbian and Bulgarian is almost identical. So luckily that's a big help. And I need to learn some very basic things that I would say to an orchestra, like "Ochem horosho," very good. Things that don't rush, things that are, I need to be able to say every orchestra. There are certain things that a conductor is always going to say. Don't rush, things like that. And other than that, I know in Russia, I had a translator for the orchestra. I tried not to use her. She was fantastic, but I tried to communicate through my gestures, through conducting. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the best thing for a conductor, to show the music, because the musicians want to play. They don't want to listen to somebody talking. But when I need to talk, of course, it's helpful to know the language. So my advice, again, to young singers, if you are opera singers, learn Italian fluently. That is going to get you everywhere. Because at the Metropolitan, most Slavic singers, for example, don't speak English so well, but they speak Italian. Yeah, so we use Italian at the Metropolitan as a universal language in almost all of the rehearsals.
Yeah. But as also, if you are not a singer, or just instrumental musician, so
same thing. Probably, same thing. Learn Italian, learn German, because especially Russia, you're in Europe. You are so close to Germany, and Germany has every small city in Germany has an opera house. You will probably be performing there at some point. But Italian and German are the main languages, and French, of course, is helpful. Mm-hmm. And then certainly English, of course. If my advice is to you in Russia, certainly your knowledge of English will get you far, because almost all countries will speak some English. Germany, they speak English as well as anybody. So in general.
But actually, in German countries like Germanic, like also Switzerland, actually small theaters performing still in German only. Mm-hmm. Because
in Russia, in school, in your training. In Russia, is English a second language, or what do you learn?
In conservatory, Tchaikovsky Conservatory, we have Italian.
Yeah, good.
Second language. Yeah, so all the singers, we speak Italian, parliamo italiano. But other musicians, they have a choice to study or German or English. I don't know if it applies to every universities. I'm just talking about on the conservatorium.
But not conservatory, just on a general level. What do children study in school?
I'm sorry. Sorry. We study English.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly English or French as well. Yeah, so we have choice.
Yeah, definitely learn English. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we have few questions here. What inspired you to become a conductor?
Great question. Great question. My training is as a pianist. You see the piano behind me. And again, I had Russian teachers in New York that had just immigrated to New York. So they barely spoke English. And again, as a child, not speaking Russian and they not speaking English, we didn't need language. You know, we had music. They showed me, I played the piano. They showed me how it should be. They were strict. They made me work hard, and we didn't need to talk so much. And that's the great thing about musicians, that we can all communicate in that international language called music. But I'm sorry, what was the question? I just went off topic.
What inspired you to become a
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was a pianist, and when I played concerts by myself on stage, I felt empty. I felt that I'm a person with a personality that loves to work with people. It's another reason why it's very difficult right now working on the internet with people. I like to be with the person. I like to, you feel a certain vibe from somebody as a musician when you are making music with that person. I miss that. I'm sure everybody misses that. It will come back, of course. Now we're doing it with masks. It's something. But in any case, I was missing the camaraderie of being with other people in my music on stage. So I started playing chamber music. I started accompanying singers, and I felt that the people I was working with inspired my musicality, and that I became a better musician working with other people. So I felt that I'm a person that needs to work with other people. And then I started conducting, because you cannot ask for more people than as a conductor. I'm working with a huge orchestra and a choir and singers. So okay, so actually the reason I was playing in a small opera company in New York, it was Fledermaus, in fact, and the music director asked me to conduct one performance. It was a New Year's performance, and the conductor wasn't available. And I said, but I've never conducted. I'm just a pianist. And he said, Greg, you will be fine. Just try it. And so I really studied. I worked hard, and I conducted that night. And then that was it. I said, I'm a conductor. I never want to do anything else. And he knew that it was inside of me. He could just tell by the way I play piano that I'm a conductor. And he gave me that chance, that opportunity. And since then, I've never stopped. So I think because I like working with so many people, as a conductor, I feel very comfortable, to work with a whole orchestra to me is the greatest. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, that you have 80 people sitting there, and because you raise your hand and do a gesture, all these 80 people play together. In a way, how is this possible that 80 people can play at one time? So it's kind of a magical thing that we do, and it's for me, again, the more people, I just feel that I become more inspired. So that's why I conducting.
So would you recommend to the soloists, solo instrumentalists or singers, to try a little bit different styles? I mean, to collaborate with other musicians, do maybe some like ensembles, or singing choirs, choruses, or maybe like accompany, if it's a pianist, soloist, accompanies other instruments or singers. Or they should concentrate, if they decided to be soloists, should concentrate only on their solo careers. And
the more different things we can do, the better musicians, the better artists we become. So I'm a pianist, I'm a conductor. I play chamber music as a pianist. I play for singers. I play by myself as a pianist. All these different styles makes me a better musician. When I conduct, okay, I've been asked to conduct Bach. Like somebody asked me to conduct a Baroque concert of Vivaldi, The Four Seasons, and Brandenburg Concerto. And I said, why do you need a conductor? Really, this is music that you don't need a conductor for. And this orchestra wanted a conductor. So I understand that. But I feel that Baroque music, for example, is such a different style. And of course, it depends how many instruments you have doing a Brandenburg Concerto. But if you have a small group of instruments, I think it's chamber music. You don't need a conductor, for example. But to know again the style of how it is with a small group versus a large group, like Herbert von Karajan conducted the Brandenburg Concerto with the whole Berlin Philharmonic, maybe 100 instruments, is a very different concept than a small, group of maybe 6 or 7 instruments.
Mhm.
So good to know these different possibilities. So yes, everybody should do everything. And I thought your question was going to be, do you recommend that singers study conducting? And I'd say
Oh.
absolutely, because
Why not?
you will understand what we have to go through as conductors when we are working together if you
Yes.
try conducting. And I understand so much about the voice because I when I was starting out, I accompanied for voice lessons, and I learned so much about the limits of the voice, what's possible. That's why I love to work with singers, why I coach singers. And the more we can do, the more instruments you can play. I played violin in school, so I understand the string instruments, what they are like.
Mhm.
And that is so helpful for me as a conductor. So in answer to your question, the more you can do, the more different styles, the better musician we become.
Yeah, of course. And of course, we have to start probably from early age. Yeah, well, usually musicians start from early age to study their instruments besides singers. Yeah, only few people, starting very early, but most discover their voices after they're like in their 20s. So why for them, for us, it would be very difficult to become conductors because some of my colleagues don't have any musical background.
But children, maybe I don't understand your question, but children have the opportunity to sing from a young age, and they're children choruses, and people could, I think it's never too early to start, and it's never too late to start. If this is what's in your heart, if this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
Great. So we have one more question here from composer Emmanuel Dubois. Because of COVID, is there now a greater interest in new concentrate instrumental music, like piano concerto, or rather than vocal music?
Again, I'm known mostly as an opera conductor, but I do symphonic music also. I do everything. But because singing requires, how do we say this? The breath. And I think it's at bigger risk of COVID. For example, I was contracted to conduct Faust at Florida Grand Opera in March. They just had to cancel their whole season. The main reason is because Faust is such a big chorus opera. And our union, AGMA, which is the union for all singers in the US, has stated that we cannot have a chorus singing until there's a vaccine. It's a chorus singing an opera like Faust, where you might have 60 or 80 people so close singing to each other, is just not possible today. People are not comfortable. So they had to cancel Faust and Traviata, their big operas, and now we're doing small operas that have no chorus in small venues where singers can still sing with small casts. This is what we have to do temporarily. So in answer to your question, yes, I think instrumental music, and what I hope will happen is the art of the art song leader will become much more prominent, because I think it was very fashionable in the older days to sing a Schubert recital or Brahms recital, and it kind of got lost recently. And I think this will come back, hopefully, because to have one singer on a stage with a piano is, I think, the way people are comfortable right now. And then the audiences, of course, is another problem, how close people can be in the audience. But hopefully this will be an excuse to have the art song recital come back. And then after that, we will gradually get back to full opera. But yes, instrumentalists are able to perform much more easy than people singing, for sure, right now.
Yeah. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our interview.
That went so quickly. How is that possible?
So quickly, yeah. So we can do another one. So would you like to share with us any of your future events or plans?
Well, again, everything has been canceled. So I had so many, especially this past summer in Europe. I was we won't talk about what would have happened. It didn't happen. Yes, I mean, things have been canceled. I look forward for the Varna Festival to come back, because so I'll be conducting there again. I do have some other possibilities in Europe, but it's just because of COVID, everything is on hold. I will be conducting several productions in the US with a touring company called Teatro Lirico d'Opera, and that will be Barbiere and Bohème and a concert in February and March. But everything right now is at the mercy of society. I think COVID cases get bad. In the US especially, theaters are not willing to open, and risk. I think in Europe, people are a little bit more adventurous, but as you see, then they have to close. And the terrible thing for a theater is to plan a season and then have to cancel it, because so many things are involved, especially in international theater like the Met, where you have to plan rehearsals and all the singers have to be booked and book their flights and come and rent an apartment. And then at the last minute to cancel it, it really causes panic, chaos. So I think people are being very careful about when we can start. But now there are some hopeful vaccines. We hope very soon we will resume to a normal musician's life.
Well, hopefully. But I know that you have a concert tomorrow. No?
Tomorrow, yes. So I had mentioned with Miami Orchestra, where I'm playing with my colleague Elaine Rinaldi. She's the music director of the orchestra, and we are doing every week, because she was going to be conducting all the Beethoven symphonies. She's very clever. Now every Sunday afternoon we are doing each symphony for 4 hands. And she is doing some of them live with a small orchestra. So we will be doing the number 3, Eroica, and that'll be at 4 p.m. New York Eastern time. I'm not sure what time it will
be. Late for Russia. It will be like after midnight. But
People are welcome to visit my Facebook wall, because I have everything posted there.
Okay, great.
And I'm happy if people want to reach out and message me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm very happy to
We will share
answer any other questions.
Yeah, we will share your contact information for sure. And as already Maestro mentioned, that he's teaching and conducting and voice.
Coaching voice students or conducting students, I have been doing online if anybody is interested. But it's of course, I look forward. But this is another advantage, that we're so far away. If we were doing live sessions, it would not be possible for me to work with people from Russia or them to work with me. So this is an opportunity now, because we are forced to be doing lessons online, that we can actually cross cultures much more easily like this.
Yeah, so that's true. Now people can work from different parts of the world, and
this I think will remain after COVID. We'll always
we will have this advantage at least after this. So we have one more question.
Sure.
So Evgeny Makarov asking if you have ever composed, actually, and if you have your own piece, and if you have ever performed them on the stage.
Yeah, I'm a performer. I've tried to compose when I was young, and it always sounded like something else, like somebody else's music. So I knew this was not for me, because I think gifted composers, and I've done so many premieres of young people and new works, which I love to do. They are gift. They have that gift. Like we were talking about, I have that gift of conducting because I feel it comes naturally to me. This is what God called for me to do. I don't think it's composing, because when I've tried it, it's not natural. It's a big effort, and it's not unique to me. It's not organic. So this is why it's so important to find what we do best, and we all do something different. So unfortunately, I'm not a composer. I'm an interpreter, but I'm happy because I get to do everybody else's music and so many varieties of that.
Okay,
that's great.
Well, Maestro, thank you so much for joining us tonight, the morning.
Yes.
For you in Florida, you are in Florida. It's even earlier.
Right.
Well,
same as New York.
Same as New York. Florida, yes, same as New York. Yeah.
Same as you.
So we will share all your information with our attendees. We will follow up with email. With contact information and websites and social media links of the Maestro. And again, I repeat, if somebody would like to take any lessons with Maestro, you have this opportunity now. And please just or contact him directly on his social media, or send us message, and we will forward it to the Maestro. Maestro, again, thank you so much. And good luck with everything you do. With all your performances, and tomorrow as well. Yeah, we will watch it tomorrow. So for us,
Great.
it will be not after midnight. Yeah.
Thank you so
and-
much. And yeah, thank you, Yulia, for.
Thank you. And we will see you again soon, hopefully.
Okay.
We'll do
Must
another
be done.
session. Okay. Well, bye, Maestro. And I would like just to say thank you to everybody who attended our webinars today. And you are welcome to come next Saturday, November 28th, to another 2 webinars. And we will have guests. One is French composer, conductor, and founder of the Contemporary Music Festival in France, Amaury Duclozel, and American conductor, tenor, and producer, and music director of the National Chorale in New York City, Everett McCorvey. Probably Maestro Buchalter knows them as well. Yeah, so Maestro, you're also welcome to join our webinars next Saturday. And the links to the webinars are shared already, yeah, in the chat, or will be shared right now. And we will follow also with the emails. Well, thank you so much again to everyone. Have a great day or a good night. And we will see you soon.